When I was 7, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. You had to take the insulin injections. I remember when I was a kid, I set goals. I remember wanting to be a teenager, wanting to live long enough to be a teenager. I didn't realize I had cataracts. So I ended up developing cataracts in both my eyes. And I've been seeing, I got corrective lenses when I was 5. I love fashion. Like when I was a kid, like I've always loved fashion. I've always loved it. Last year I did Denver Fashion Week and said, could I come shoot your challenge? Yeah, come on over. I realized that there was a perfect place for me to be able to capture people and show them how beautiful they are, right? As they are. Like,
Welcome, Scott, to We Are Meant to United podcast. I am so excited to welcome you here today on behalf of our entire team. And thank you for accepting my invite and being here today for this, what I know is going to be an incredible conversation.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. So, Scott, first of all, for those who might not know you, just briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Wow, it's where to start. Kind of multi-layered, I would say, which I think you've discovered. I work in legal technology. I invested in one legal tech company called ECFX. I'm working for another legal tech company called ZebraWorks. It's an amazing smaller company that I started with a long time ago. Um, that's where I get my income, but where my passion lies and where I really get to connect with community is through my photography. I'm a fashion photographer, so I shoot on the runway for Denver Fashion Week, various shows. It's where I really enjoy being. I think of it as being in an action movie. When you're at the have you ever been to Denver Fashion Week?
Not yet.
So you
You need
have
to
you
get me
have
an
to go.
invite.
I will. When you're at the top of the runway, so the models are about 20 or 30 feet away, and at the top of the runway is where I shoot from. So, and there are lights and music, and they have performances. But when the models come out, they're wearing these amazing designs, and they're walking straight at me, just looking me in the eye, and I'm capturing these moments that I'm seeing, and it's incredible. But it's like being in an action movie, and I love doing it. I think so. There's that aspect of what I do. My wife and I also founded a nonprofit organization in 2011 called Friends of the Lakota Nation. We've I grew up in South Dakota and was aware of a lot of the issues that were happening up there with reservations on the state. A lot of issues with racism and the way that the Native Americans are treated in the state. Still an issue today. And in 2011, just had an opportunity with a guy that I went to high school with by the name of Brad Bearshart, who had been doing some work up there. And I said, oh, and he lives in Colorado Springs. And I said, let me go with you. And so we went up, and I started getting into it then. Was on a flight from New York to Denver and seated beside it. In fact, it was one of those early morning flights where you don't want to talk to anyone. It was early morning, and I'd been working there all week, and I saw this guy coming down the aisle, and he was like had all this energy, and he was helping people put their luggage up, and I had an open middle seat that I was hoping he was going to stay that way, and he sat right there, and it was Brad Corrigan with the indie rock band Dispatch, and Dispatch is headlined at Red Rocks. They've sold out Madison Square Garden, and Brad and I spent 4 hours together. He was sharing the story of his nonprofit called Love, Light, and Melody, work that he'd been doing in La Chureca, Nicaragua, and I was telling him about work that we've been doing on Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. So we started going up together, and we've taken Stefan Lessard from Dave Matthews Band up. We took Marcus Mumford went up with us for a couple of days after they had some flooding up there. So, but it's really been about supporting the community in different ways that we can. There's an emergency foster care there that we support, where we built a big fence around their home. We've brought furniture there. We're just kind of, I think my wife states it best, where we listen and we're available to help if we're ever needed. We don't we don't go in to try and assess what's going on and fix things. We're there to be a support system and love and support people. So there's that aspect, and I think those are the three main things that I'm up to. Oh, and have three teenagers. Well, one I have 18, 20, and 15. So a lot going on between all of my work, passions, and family.
That's incredible, Scott. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And honestly, I just can't wait to dive into a little bit into all of those because you touched on quite a lot of things. But yeah, I'll just start by saying with your nonprofit work, I was really moved by it, and I was also really it was great to see that you were able to give back to your community, but it's not like you have 1,000 folks. It's like really a small group of people who are making the real impact and taking it upon yourselves. So that spoke to me on a deep level. So yeah, I'm really excited to get into it. And so as a parent, I feel like you're gonna have a lot to offer folks who are in our audience here today. So I'm excited for that. So take us back a little bit. I know you've been open about different physical struggles that you've had in your past since your childhood. Tell us a little bit about that and how you were able to overcome some difficult moments in your life and be able to now be here as a strong adult and just be a role model for other people.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I think it's been when I look at the things that I've navigated, and we're all navigating different things, the different levels of challenges, different levels of pain, of darkness, of all sorts of terrible things that we have to navigate. And the other day, I had a ride. I was doing a shoot downtown, and I was coming back. There was an Uber driver, and I could tell something was up with him. And I started talking with him, and I could tell he was really down. And he started talking about losing work and not being able to pay his bills, and he wasn't going to be able to Uber for much longer. He said, I just don't know if it's worth staying around. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't have anything to live for. And he said that his child support was $2,000 a month. He couldn't pay that. He had two other kids, and he was just struggling. So it was hard to listen and have something to say, right? Like to know, what do you tell somebody that's in a state like that, to know that things aren't going to stay like that, right? It's like, for me, I think some of the darkest things that I've navigated had the most light at the end, right? And it started when I was young. When I was 7, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So type 1, I had to take the insulin injections, which I wasn't super impacted by that. I think the part that impacted me, though, was what the doctors told me when I was diagnosed, and I remember it. They said, and at the time there was little care for diabetics. There were no pumps, no pods, no constant glucose monitors. You couldn't check your own blood sugar. You took one injection a day and crossed your fingers. That was it. Like, count carbs. But what they said was, if you don't manage this and if you can't keep it in control, there are going to be long-term effects that you will pay the price for that. And one is your vision. You can go blind. Amputations are common. You could lose your feet, your hands, your kidneys. This list went on. I was 7, right? So what that really frightened me was going blind. I remember I was walking around. I vividly remember. Wearing a robe and walking through. We had this little house. Walking through the house, and I took the belt off the robe and tied it around my eyes, and just seeing how I was going to navigate when I couldn't see, and I didn't go very far, right? And it was really frustrating. So that that stuck with me, and it stuck with me. It's always stuck with me. And I started, when was it? It was in the 90s, probably the early 90s. I had these hemorrhages in my eyes. And what would happen is that the hemorrhage would, all of a sudden, I'd see something really dark in my vision, and it would start to break apart. And as it would start to disintegrate, I would lose my vision in that eye. And I would lose it for, I think it would take about 2 months before I get my vision back in that eye. But it was happening in both eyes. So I never had it happen to both eyes at the same time, fortunately. But it was always whenever that hit me, I was like, oh, I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to watch TV very well. It was going to be hard to work. It was going to be hard to drive. It was going to be all these things were going to be challenging. So it would knock me down, and I never knew when it was going to hit. So I had to navigate that for a long time. And in my mind too, it was always when it first happened, I knew that was it. Okay, this is the beginning of me going blind. And I ended up after that went on for it was quite a while before I could get surgery to take care of it. But I dealt with that for a few years, on and off. It was always a constant, and I still have floaters in my vision that didn't go away. Like I haven't had any hemorrhages in years and years, in 20, 25 years or so. So it's not, I don't deal with that anymore. The doctor did a great job, but I still have these floaters in my eyes that I are just part of what I deal with. That we all have things we deal with, right? We all have, and then as we get older, we deal with more and more. Different things start to fail us. We start to lose people. We lose functionality in our knees or our elbows or our hands or anything. So these are things that we have to navigate. I'll take a breath.
Yeah.
Any questions on
Yeah.
all?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that with me, Scott. And I'm really grateful that some things worked out for the better and that you are able to maintain your vision and that you are healthy and with us here today. I'm really grateful for that. And
Thank
yeah, like I'm not a big fan of big pharma, but every now
you.
and then I hear stories like this and I'm really moved. So and that like medicine has caught up in a way with for to allow different people to live full lives just makes me really
Yeah.
grateful. So yeah, thank you for
Yes.
sharing that with me. I can't really imagine how difficult that must have been to navigate during childhood and your teenage years, early adulthood. What kept you going? What was your support system? How did you stay you?
Um, I well, I think a big part of it is I didn't have any choice. Like I had to play the hand I was dealt. So in I think for any of us it's about well, it's all about how we cope. It's about how we navigate our own thoughts is really what it boils down to. Because if and I have to do it all the time. I have to practice turning things off in my brain. Because we can start to go down those we I think of them as imagined dangers, and we do it all the time where we're imagining worst case scenario. I'm imagining what it's going to be like without my vision, what it's going to be like if I can't see, um, and we all do this. We start thinking about worst case scenario, and we can get in that trap for a long time. Some of us can't sleep at night because we stay in there for so long. So I think for me, part of it is an awareness of when that starts to happen and realizing that how unproductive that it is. But a big part of it is hope, and I'm going to talk a little more about that as I share a little more. And I think things have definitely gotten more and more challenging, but there's been a lot more light too. There's been things have been changing for me. A lot of it ties around my current world with fashion and photography and ballroom and the communities that I'm finding out there. That I think that's one of the things I'm enjoying is I'm enjoying connecting with people and hearing where where everybody's struggling, right? Like where, especially the younger people and working in fashion, I'm working with a lot of 20, 25, 15, 18-year-old kids, and I like to understand what their worlds are like, because I
Mhm.
know that with my own kids, there's so much that everybody's facing with everything at your fingertips, and um, how we're being perceived by others, because we can have thousands of people looking at us via social media. How are we putting ourselves out there? So there are a lot, there are a lot more. There's a lot more to navigate today, I
Mhm.
think, mentally, especially in our social lives, than there ever has been.
Yeah, definitely. I read this tweet one time recently that said, you are not supposed to know 1,000 people that'll know, let alone know what they were thinking. And that's the internet. You know what everyone's thinking, and you know what's everyone's opinion on everything. And it's you get such a high from it. So it's easy to assume that it's like a good thing, but really it's a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're definitely going to be uh touching on that a little as well. But I guess before we move on a little from this section, what advice do you would you give for folks who are like you said, they feel like they're dealing with a lot, or entering the rabbit hole of catastrophizing, or just thinking of the worst. And it's like you said, like as life keeps going, you're always dealt with something. Like life is not smooth.
Yeah.
And that's, I feel like when I speak with my sisters or my cousins, just folks who are a little younger, I have to keep reminding them that. And I also have to keep reminding myself that. Um, but what would you just simply kind of give like a word of encouragement to people on how to not catastrophize?
One, we have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, we have no idea what's around the corner. Um, and I think that's we get in these traps where we think because we have done this, or because we have said this, or because this happened, that this other chain of events is going to occur. Well, we're generally wrong, right? We're generally wrong. We have no idea what's next. So I think for me, a big part of it has been trying to stay in the present and trying to stay focused. But it keeps coming back, right? I battle all the time. In fact, I think part of my challenges, and when I was young and growing up in South Dakota, when I was a kid, there was a lot of drinking there, and I don't know what it's like today. I left there a long time ago, but that was my medicine. Which I think when I was probably 15 or 16, I started drinking, and it was there for a very long time, and that's where I went for happiness, and which is not a good idea, because um, it's a depressant, and it makes everything worse. And but I didn't realize that I was having issues, that I needed help, that I was dealing with depression, that I was dealing with some things that just was not. Small town South Dakota, there was no mental health. There was no conversation around mental health. It just wasn't a thing. So it wasn't talked about, and there weren't any resources. So I think for me to find happiness, it's like I needed to change where my thoughts were, like change my thoughts, and we can do that with alcohol. We can do that with drugs. We can do that with different things. But we're not changing our reality. It was probably 10 years ago that I was dealing with depression, that I was dealing with bipolar disorder, that I've been facing these things that I've been medicating with alcohol my entire life. When I quit, I don't know, probably 8 years ago or so, I quit drinking. And um, I think my point with that is that there's medicine that can be beneficial. Um, there depending on your philosophy with medication and so forth, and there's that's probably a slippery slope, but there are ways that you can treat yourself other than alcohol or drugs or other resources through exercise and medication.
Definitely.
Kind of all
Thank
over
you.
the board. I'm going everywhere with my stories.
No, and I'm really glad that you are because life is not linear, like we mentioned. So, over the past many years, so many things have came up for you. So, yeah, definitely. I feel glad that you feel comfortable to share and just be yourself here. But yeah, and thank you for sharing a little bit about your mental health struggles as well. And I'm glad you brought up the topic on in different times and in different areas, like mental health wasn't as mainstream conversation as it is now. So dealing with a diagnosis at in that space and time is even more difficult. But what do you think in like the current times? Do you feel like it's gotten better for folks to get help when they need it or recognize that they might need help and be comfortable enough to get it? Like, speak a little
Mhm.
bit in that context.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get help right now, but I think the challenge is a lot more people need it.
Mhm.
Just when I think about what our kids have faced over the years and in high school and their so many people from kids to adults are dealing with mental health challenges and I don't know how much of that comes from um, all from TikTok and all the fast moving items and from being on our phones and um, I don't know, but there are a lot more resources. But I know that we've tried to find help for different family members, and it's not easy. It's not. That's been my experience. There just wasn't. There's not a great place for a teenager to go to get what they need to be able to leave and be recovered. Um, Maybe there is, but they're not easy to find. Has been my
Yeah,
experience. But
yeah, definitely.
and it definitely helps being in a city as well, as far as finding help.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like just being Denverites now, it's definitely a little better in 2025 than probably any other time in history. Um, so that's really exciting. But in your own journey, what was like how did you kind of come to that point where you said, okay, maybe I'm gonna get a mental health eval, or maybe I'm gonna go to a counselor? Like, how did you reach that point?
Yeah, great question. And it was I'd always kind of wondered. I knew that my grandmother was depressed, and I heard that she had like the electrotherapy, the shock treatment that was just terrible. I don't
Wow.
know a lot about it, but she had gone through that. So, and I knew one of the things that always puzzled me with mental health is how do how do I know that my thoughts are off? How do I know the way that I feel is different than the way that somebody else feels? How do I know that I'm angrier than someone else is, or that I'm sad more frequently than someone else is? It's like there's not, in my mind, there's not an easy way to gauge our mental health, right? And knowing because we're all navigating ups and downs and different challenges that we're going to have good days and bad days. Um, but I think it depends on the severity of them and the frequency of them in regard to how much help we need. But I think it's really important to realize that there is community. Um, One of the difficult things about being depressed is being alone in that, being alone in your thoughts and feeling like you are alone and you could be depressed either from losing a family member or through a relationship, whatever it may be. But there's a whole community of people that are struggling and that can lift one another up. And I think it's just important to know that when we get in these times that it seems like there's no way to turn, that it's going to be different tomorrow, and if it's not, it's going to be different the day after that. But we can't predict what's around the corner for us, and there are so many stories of people that have what they've overcome and what they've endured to get to a better place. And that's there for everyone. We just have to know it is.
Yeah, definitely. Like suffering and loneliness that's really big. And also, like you mentioned, how are you supposed to know other people's thoughts or what like normal thoughts are?
Yeah,
Because you can't read others' minds.
yeah.
Like your whole life, you only know your own thoughts. And that's just the complexity of the human experience. It's so complicated and interesting and exciting. But
So there
yeah,
was, I'm going to go back because I forgot to answer your question. But we went in, another family member we wanted to get tested because they were having mental health challenges. And there's a test where I think it was a saliva test. It was quite a while ago. And it's like it's called a genomind or something like that, where they can tell where you are struggling. And at that point, they could tell that like what medication would help me, like where I was lacking some things chemically in my brain. And that's where they're able to determine by evaluating me and taking a closer look within me that I was dealing with a bipolar disorder, that I was dealing with depression, and they were able to tell me what medications I could try that could potentially benefit that.
yeah.
And I know there have been a lot of people that have tried meds that did not work. I'm not a fan of big pharma either, but this is something that I have found benefit in. Um, I know people that have not, but I think that my take on it has been um, if there's a medication available and if you're in a state that is very challenging and it's a state you can't stay in, right? And it's like I think when we talk about depression and our struggles, it's about be in a state that I cannot stay in the state any longer, right? So for some people, that means considering ending their lives. For others, it means ending a relationship. But for me, it's like if I can try medication and all of a sudden I'm feeling better,
Mhm.
uh, and I realize, okay, that's benefiting me, then that's good. And
Yeah,
that's been my experience with it. I found something that works for me.
definitely, definitely. Um, and yeah, like you said, it's especially with mental health, it's like if people are willing to get help, it's just so important to make sure that they do get help. And if you don't mind me asking, like how long ago were you diagnosed? Like were you diagnosed as an adult?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was 10 years ago at the most.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
I didn't, yeah, I just I didn't know.
mhm,
Like how do we know? Like how do we really know if we're depressed? Because um there's so many different levels and everybody gets sad. So it's a really challenging thing to measure. Um
yeah. And what was that transition like after you like started your medication? What were some things that were different for you and you realized like, oh, this was actually associated with my diagnosis and that's not how I would normally feel.
yeah, well, I mean I would have points where I would be so depressed that I could do nothing. I I could not watch anything or listen to anything because nothing was of interest to me. I just sat and I would do this for hours because um, I don't know why, because I was depressed, because I did not have any interest in anything. Um, what was your question?
Oh, I asked what were different for you soon after you started your
Oh,
medication.
yes. So then I started taking medication and I noticed my mood was changing. I noticed that I was more stable and I was happier. And so I could tell it was benefiting me. And it was that simple, but also it was about being aware of it. It's about knowing what triggers you, because there are different things that for me would trigger me to put me into that state. So but it's a really, really challenging thing because I can't imagine because how do people know? I mean, how do they know? Like I don't know. And this isn't my field other than living it. And my own answers to it, but I don't know what the gauge is, how people are supposed to be to a point where you're at this point where you're like, okay, I need some help. I need to figure something out. And I think for me, part of that was how frequently that I was turning to alcohol to escape my reality. I think was one sign. And when I didn't have that, I realized that my reality needed more than I had. I needed more to be able to cope with my reality.
Oh, thank you, Scott. That's really, really deep, and I'm so glad that you're able to, share that with us and just take us a little bit through your journey, and that we kind of get to see this through your lens as well, because it's not easy and it's really challenging, and it takes a lot of hard work, to be able to do that and to also be able to talk about it and allow people to understand that they're not alone
Mm.
in their journeys. But yeah, thank you.
Yes,
So
well, I think that's part of the reason for my journey is so I can share it, right?
yeah, yeah.
So somebody else and I thought about it years ago because I know when I thought about when I was 8 or 10 or 15 or 20 thinking about how much longer I had. Like I didn't know, and it wasn't just my eyesight. Like I wasn't supposed to live that long, right? Like when your kidneys fail and all these different things. But it's like um, I remember when I was a kid, I set goals, and they were. I remember wanting to be a teenager, like wanting to live long enough to be a teenager. Then it was like 16. Then I want to be 18. Then I want to be 21. Then I want to be 25. So I went on for all of my adolescence and much of my younger life thinking about, well, now I still do. I still think about it, um, but wondering how much time that I have left. But that ended up being a really beneficial thing for me. The not knowing not knowing how long I was going to live made me live differently. And I think um, on the vision front, that's what really feeds into my photography. It's not like um, not knowing how I'm going to be able to see, and then losing my vision and be like, oh, but like I love photography when I was a kid. Like I've been shooting for 50 years. So um, but it makes me see things differently. It makes me I've for years and years I seek beauty. Like I'm looking for things that capture my attention that I think are beautiful. And it could be a sunset, it could be a shape, it could be lines, it could be colors, it could be anything. And I had speaking of that, there's one part that ties into it really ties into like why I'm in the world of fashion photography and um, photography itself. When I in 2020 I had this career that I had um, was a big part of my identity. It was with a large company. I'd done well there. I started at I was an inside salesperson. I was not in the legal field. I did not have a college degree. I did not have um, I talked somebody into hiring me, and I started, and I got to outside sales, to sales manager, to director of sales, to the point where I was running the sales team, and I'd been successful, and I felt like and I planned on retiring from that company, right? And earlier when I was talking about we don't know what's around the corner, and that could be with what we're thinking is really great that's around the corner, or what we think that's terrible around the corner. We have no idea what's around the corner for us next. In my head, I was going to retire from there. I'm fine. I'm safe. I make enough money. I don't need a lot. I'm okay. And then I had some issues with my hands in 2020. I woke up one night and my fingers were locked. I couldn't open my hands, and they were all swollen up, and I couldn't use them. So I could not figure out what the problem was. I had to go on short-term disability. So I was on short-term disability for about 4 months, but I started getting worried about my employment because I had two sales managers and there was a new leadership team. Like, and I thought, well, I better get back in there because they're covering for me. And what if they decide they don't need me? And what if they don't need to pay my salary? And I didn't think too much about it because I felt really safe because I've been there so long and had a great track record. But I went back I told my doctor, I said, give me clearance for half days for the first week and then put me back in full time. My hands weren't better yet, but I was worried that something was going to happen. I was worried that that my job may be in jeopardy. So I go back and I'm back that first week for half days, and then I'm asked to come into a meeting on a Monday morning, virtually. It's during the pandemic, and there were a couple of red flags, and I thought, okay, if HR is on there, I'm going to know what's going on. I got on, sure enough, HR was on there. There's someone new on the leadership team, and they're like, and the one guy says, well, there's been a reorg, and we've done away with your director's position. Here's HR, and this was on November 9th, 2020, and they said, here's HR. Your last day is going to be on November 20th, and that was after 22 years. And I was just like, whoa. So that rocked my world because that was like that was part of my identity. And when I look back on it, it was too much of my identity. Like it was just too much of who I was. Like I check my phone at night, any deals coming in? Is this going on? Is that? But I was lost and I was devastated because I did not know. I was hurt because I was treated that way. I was hurt because I was no longer needed. I was hurt because I wasn't appreciated. I was hurt because I wasn't valued for all my years of service. I was hurt because I couldn't tell anybody on my team that I was being let go or my severance was going to be in jeopardy. Like there were all these things, and my hands weren't working, and there were a bunch of things going on. So I spent close to 2 years where I was on severance and I was trying to figure out what to do. And I was dealing with depression a lot. I was dealing with a lot of different things. And I kind of stayed in one room. And throughout when the kids were growing up, I was always photographing the kids, always, always, always. So I had thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of images of them. So for almost 2 years, I went through those images and I edited them and I fixed them and I edited them. Because I think I did that because I could turn everything else off in my head. I'm just fixing this, fixing this, fixing this, fixing this. Then I realized that I thought, and the kids are teenagers, and I'm thinking, so I'm looking at how much I miss them when they're little, and I thought, this is pretty stupid. How much am I missing right now doing this? I thought, So I decided, I said, all right, I'm gonna buy a new camera. So I bought a new camera and I'm gonna get out there. I'm gonna start shooting again. And so I started getting outside. I started doing landscape photography and shooting lightning and astrophotography and all these different things and really getting into it. And I think that helped me. I think the passion and that piece today and throughout the course has been something that it's given me so much life. And I think that's really important. And we all have, I believe we all have something we're really good at. It could be a sport. Maybe you're an artist. Maybe maybe you're a vocalist, maybe you are an intellect, maybe anything. It could be we all have these gifts, and it's like if we, you know, and if we can't do them and get paid for them, then we should be doing them in our free time to find life in them and escape some of this other noise that's all around us that's distracting us and troubling us. So I
Definitely.
found photography through that. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, thank you, Scott. That resonates with me, honestly, just you speaking about this epidemic of layoffs that we've been facing for the last 5 years. And like I told you right before this conversation, I'm an advocate for our generation and the youth and more generally. And one of the things we've been faced with is this constant um instability and lack of security with jobs and the workforce. And yeah, just a lot of people who went to school assuming that they would, get a good livelihood out of school. And then people who also decided to just join the workforce after high school being very disappointed at what they're facing from their employers. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's what happens in this type of economic structure. But for the individual, it's an extremely, extremely daunting process. I've been laid off too, once after working there for like a year and a half or something like that. And then another time the company was just shutting down after I think they were in business for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that like for the individual, it's about like you're losing not like you said a part of your identity because nowadays when you introduce yourself you're like, hey, this is my name, this is where I work, and that's
What do you
kind of
do?
how you
Yeah.
introduce yourself, and then
Yeah.
you're like, and I'm from this city, right? So it's so intertwined with our identity, and I feel like with millennials, Gen X, boomers, it's even more integrally tied to their identity. Like my mom, she works for the airlines, Ethiopian Airlines, like that's big part of her life. Um, and for me, I think just having these experiences early on in my life, it was just like, I can't tie my identity to my job because it's like not secure. And that's kind of the sentiment across the board right now. So yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up, and also that feeling of hopelessness because not only like you said, are you losing this part of your identity, but you're also losing your form of income. So you're no
Yeah.
longer,
Yeah.
it's like you're no longer this independent adult who you've worked so hard to be. All of a sudden it's like, okay, you have to deal with severance pay and then you're probably going to get on unemployment. And the job market is another beast. So it's just it's empowering to hear about that from your perspective because um you have that question of self-worth and self-confidence, which takes a long time to build back up. It genuinely took me like a year to build up my self-confidence back to the point where it was. And yeah, like you said, you can't tell your colleagues that you were laid off because then it's like
Yeah.
it's
Lose your
you
severance
just
if you can't tell
here's your
anyone.
severance. Yeah, here's your severance. Sign it, get out of the office. And it's
Yeah.
like, but I just gave like years of my life to you guys, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean anything. Um, so yeah, as individuals, that's something really hard to grapple with. And it's honestly, I feel just so empowered even talking about it with you because it's just not something that you choose to talk about or like it's unless it's with a close friend or mentor,
Yeah.
that's just not something that comes up. Or even if you tell them like, hey, this happened, where does the conversation go? They're like, oh, sorry, like here's a link.
Yeah.
Here's the link to another job.
It's
But it's
interesting. And I hadn't really thought as much about like what you're saying in regard to um, how it becomes part of our identity. And I think part of the challenge is how we look at one another in regard to determining if someone is successful or not.
Mhm.
Right? I think that ultimately it's like when you're asking someone, well, no, there could be multiple reasons for it, but it's like um, I'm asking you what you do. One, maybe because I want to know what we have in common, But oftentimes people are asking that because I'm gonna judge you and see, okay, what do you do? And it's like, if I tell someone what I do, well, I'm the director of
Yeah.
sales, right? I'm the
Yeah.
director. It's like, okay, well now, and I'm still a director, but now when someone asks me what I do, I say I'm a fashion photographer because that's who I am. Like I'm in legal tech because that's what I know and that's where I get my income. But that's not who I am. And I think that changed after I lost that job because that's who I was then. Now I realize, no, it's like a relationship, right? Where I was in that relationship, I got hurt so bad at the end of that relationship. I'm not going to let myself step into another one of those relationships. I'm going to be doing something else on the side that's for me that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Um, if by chance I can make money at that, that's great. But I have a different philosophy about that. Like um, I don't want to be a photographer for a living. I don't want to make money doing it because then I'm going to end up having to do things that I don't want to do. Like
Yeah.
I only want to shoot fashion. I don't like doing family portraits. I don't like doing those things, and I would have to do those, and I'd stop loving photography. So I still do that the other gig, which I'm good at, and I can make money there, and I can dedicate my time to that during the day. But in the evenings on the weekends, you're going to find me in the other world.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I resonate with that a little bit. I've thought about that concept itself. Like, I'm like, people should have a day job. People is me. But I'm like, you should have a day job, so that like you do your job and then you can do everything else you want with like no boundaries, no rules. And then you can also like fund some different projects you want to do. Like you can afford to do it because like you have a day job. So yeah, I do resonate with you on that, like to a certain extent. But yeah, no,
There's
I'm
life and
really,
excitement in that, right? It's like
yeah,
there's life and excitement when we can do what we want to do. There's life and excitement, and I think modern day though the challenge is for your generation is like, yeah, but where are we finding the money? Where do we go to
mhm,
find that? And what can we possibly do that we don't despise to
yeah,
get money, right?
yeah.
It's crazy. Like,
It's that exact balance. Like, what can we do that we don't despise? I remember my first job out of college, like I just felt like so disoriented and really disconnected from who I am just for like doing that job for 8+ hours a day. I used to have like keychains and like little things like rings and stuff that would remind me of who I am and that I'm just here to be here. And I really hated it, honestly. I really like
yes,
I
yeah,
disconnected from myself. And I told my friends and family, and they were like, well, my family, I guess, were like, oh, it's like just a job. It's your first job. Like, do it get it on your resume. But looking back, like, I shouldn't have done it, honestly. I should have just quit. Um, but yeah,
yeah.
you live and you learn. So like now I work out of school, definitely more aligned with who I am. So like it's okay to be there. I don't think anyone, well, I don't love working. I don't really like being in a place, being paid and told what to do. But as far as like work goes, it's okay because you're giving back the community, you're supporting students. I love college students. I love supporting them. So it's a good thing. Um, but yeah, it's definitely just it's an experience and you have to navigate towards it. And I also wanted to speak a little bit about what you mentioned, like doing your passion in your free time. So this concept of what do you do from your 5 to 9 has come up nowadays. And I get it. People have to do chores, cook, whatever, like maintain their household. And if you're a parent, you have to like help your kids with their homework and do all those parent things. But you also need just a little bit of time for your passion and to explore it. And hobbies. You brought up hobbies, which were like such a big thing, right? Big thing and I feel like in the past. And now you have to work hard to find what your hobby is. It's not easy because you can just watch TV instead for years
Yeah,
and it's okay. So
yeah.
it's just so important to find your hobby. And when I started working full time, that was one of the things that came up for me. I used to ask people like, what do you do once you get home? And if if they were a parent, they'd be like, it's so hard. Like I have to do everything
Terrible.
and stuff. But for people who are still just on their own individuals and kind of just leaning into their young adulthood and learning about themselves, that was an introspective question. And I feel like that question is also what led me to like Mensa United and really push all that I have into it. The channel, the campaigns, it's fun, it's exciting, and it takes time to kind of find what you like. And I'm still finding my hobbies and finding what I like, but I like that we share a little bit of that part in common. But yeah, let's dive into your photography because I know we spoke about that a little bit. So you started with all types of photography, and then I saw your landscape photography, your animal photography a little bit. Really beautiful, by the way. I'll be linking your link down in the description, so folks feel free to hit that link and check out Scott's website.
The
Um,
Instagrams where I have my everything's up to speed. Like I've not done a great job of keeping my website up to date.
all right, yeah, great. I'll be linking that right down here too. I really enjoyed watching both your website and Instagram, the portraits, but also before the portraits. Let's backtrack a little bit, and you do like astrophotography, if that's what you called
Yeah.
it. All right, cool. I'm an astro girly. I love astrology,
Mhm.
astronomy, the star, the moon, and the stars and the moon. And I really love the creativity that you've put into that. So tell us a little bit about like your early journey into photography.
Yeah, I think it was I've always been intrigued by capturing a moment, by seeing something and being able to keep it. Like I had a Polaroid when I was little. I had a film camera, and when I had film cameras, it was even then I was looking even deeper. Like if you're going to shoot something with a film camera, it's like it's going to be something that because you have to go through some stuff to be able to see it, either developing it yourself or taking it in and paying to have it developed and getting it back. Um, but that aspect of I think a lot of it ties into my vision and things that I would see because I started looking and appreciating my vision when I was really young, like knowing that it could be very limited in regard to like what I can take in with my eyes. Um, so the ability to capture something that I see that attracts me, and then it happens to me all the time. I can be um, ask anyone in my family. It's like, oh my God, do you see it? Look at the moon. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Like I'm just seeing all of this beauty, and I think which has been a huge gift, and that's a gift that came from something that was really, really painful and traumatic for me in regard to losing my vision. Um, and it got I had more challenges with my vision too, where well I'm gonna I'll back up a second. The I think with photography I was always looking. I want to capture something that people would appreciate and things that I would appreciate that I could share. And like lightning, I love to shoot lightning. There's something just powerful about there are a couple like you have to scroll down my Instagram quite a ways to get to the lightning because it's interesting if you look, it's like everything is fashion. You'll just see fashion models, right? Fashion shows, and then all of a sudden tigers and lightning and landscapes and all this all this other stuff. But it's all so much fun. But the lightning is incredible. Or stars, like star trails. Are you familiar with star trails? Like how with the North Star. So when you're shooting the sky, like if I have to figure out where the North Star is, and you have to focus on the North Star and leave the camera there, and everything else is turning. So like all the other stars in the galaxy, everything is turning. So when my image is done, and I'll set the camera to fire like once a second for maybe for an hour, and then when it's done, I take all those images and I put them all together. I layer them on top, and then you'll see like you'll see like in the center, and there's one on my Instagram. You'll see the star in the center. You see everything else just kind of goes around. It's like star circles. But so for me, it's figuring out how to do things like that. It's like, okay, how do I like calculating how am I going to do that? How do I figure out where this is, and how do I time this? And a lot of it, even for me in photography, is mathematical. I don't, when I'm shooting on a runway, it's interesting. I shot my 15-year-old daughter, LJ, walked a runway for the first time for Sky Barker at a show a couple of months ago. And I asked Sky, I said, and I wasn't aware of the show, and I said, can I shoot on the runway? And she said yes. So shooting on the runway, I did not see my daughter. I'm at the top of the runway, but I don't see because I'm doing math. I'm looking at light. I'm looking at like here. Okay, this speed needs to be here. This needs to be here. How much light is over here? So I don't even see the fashion show until I'm editing, which is fun. Makes editing more fun that way.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, your pictures are absolutely insane. So
Thank you.
I'm so excited to like know you so that I can see the photos. And you
Thank
actually
you.
took a couple of photos of me at the Soul Shifters Fashion Gala. And I'm not gonna lie, I stared at them for like 5 minutes each. And I was like,
You
wow,
like
this is
them?
I absolutely love them. They were so,
Oh,
so
good.
sick. Yeah, I'm gonna be sharing them. But yeah, I really, really love them. And I work with like various media folks, photographers, videographers my whole life. So it's just exciting to connect with, talents like you. And yeah, like my dad
Thank
used to
you.
photograph, so that's just been a close part of my life. But yeah, and but with fashion, like you said, like portraits are really big for you right now. And in your FujiLove interview, you spoke a little bit about the moment that actually sparked that for you. So tell us a little bit about your transition from the types of photography that you used to do, like astro and landscape, into portraits and the fashion world.
Yeah, there's a piece in there that happened that was pretty mind blowing. I didn't realize I had cataracts. So I ended up developing cataracts in both my eyes. And I've been seeing like I got corrective lenses when I was 5, and ended up developing these cataracts. And my doctor said, well, eventually they'll have to be taken out and this and that. And got to a point, she said, you're going to need to have cataract surgery. Um, and she said, but it's not a bad thing because they can put corrective lenses inside of your eyes, and then you won't have to wear contact lenses and glasses. I'm like, well, that wouldn't be bad. So we get this all set up, and I have one eye done, and it takes about 2 days for it to heal. And when it heals, my mind is blown. Like the colors. Sorry. It's so impactful. But everything I was seeing was like through this brownish yellow haze. Like everything. I didn't know until they corrected that. Then I was just like, so that took my photography to a new level because it's like, whoa. I went back, I like had to go edit photos. I'm like, oh my God, I had everything wrong. All my colors were wrong, like way too much contrast. This is wrong, this is wrong. But all of a sudden I could see. I got the second I fixed, I was like, oh my, so blown away. I still am. Like where I can see. So it's like when you think about mental health, what we navigate, it's like I wouldn't appreciate my vision if I didn't lose it. So, but I didn't know I was going to get it back either. So it's important that I stayed around to get it back because things got pretty magical. Um, so I don't. I mentioned earlier that I don't like to charge for my photography. Um, it makes it challenging because I only have so much time, and I love giving it to people. I love. It's like what you said a moment ago when you said you kept looking at it, you loved it. That's you, right? You loved you.
Yeah,
That's important. So that's I feel like that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm supposed to do is give people images of themselves that will make them like who they're looking at.
that's beautiful, Scott. And I just think about, as an artist, how difficult it must have been to navigate um, physical struggles in both your hands and your vision, because as a photographer, like those are literally the two things you
Yeah,
need. So, it's just so challenging, and you've came out at the other end of it with such optimism and resilience that I don't know, it's just so beautiful to see that. And yeah, I feel honored to know you, and
thank
just
you.
have this conversation with you.
Thank you. There's a key piece that is important that I don't want us to finish. I have no idea what time it is or where we're at, but I don't want us to finish because it's really important. And I think for me, a big part of how I've been able to keep pressing forward is is what I have on the spiritual front. And I don't I look at that differently, I think. I don't look at that in a traditional sense. I don't I don't I believe in a higher power. I won't label that higher power because I think that's and I know this is a whole nother show, but I think part of the challenge is religion and everybody knows and you're supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. In my mind, I just want to have a relationship with that higher power, and that's what I trust is that is knowing that I'm going to be taken care of if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't I'm not a fan of organized religion. I'm not a churchgoer. I'm fine with those that go. I think it's great, but it's important. I think that I state that if I did not have that, I would not have had the hope that I have. Like I believe that I've seen things happen throughout the course of my life that have shown me that things can be okay, but you have to navigate those dark times. And those dark times, positive things come through the dark times. I mean, they do. It's like lose your vision and get it back. See how happy you are. You don't know,
That
but it's like we have no idea what's around the corner. There can be some really cool things around the corner.
Yeah, and I think that's just the beauty of life. You don't know what's next, for better or
Yeah,
for worse. And
that's it.
that's what makes it worth living. But yeah, I mean, spirituality is big on this channel. It always comes up because I feel like we always talk about your difficult moments in life, and spirituality is
Yeah.
closely tied to that in a way. Like you mentioned, I'm not a big fan of organized religion just because of like my upbringing. We used to go to church and stuff, but I just disagreed with a lot of things that they said, and I'm like, I don't really want my relationship with God to be strained by what the church says. Like it's kind of that
Yep.
simple for me. Like I think God loves everyone.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because just even like living in the US as like since I was what 18, 19, and not having my immediate family in the same state, or like my extended family members are in
Mhm.
different states also. And that really makes you realize that there is a higher power around that's looking out for you, because there's no way that this just keeps going on.
Yeah.
And in moments where you're scared and stuff, it's somehow a way comes for you, and it's just you realize it sooner or later that there are powers like that are looking out for you. But yeah.
You know what it's been for me? It's really interesting, and I'm curious if um, numbers. I see numbers all the time, like angel numbers all the time. Um, it's ones and fours, a lot of ones and fours. Like I'll see, like I saw 111 today. I'll see 1111. I'll see 111. Then it'll be 444 somewhere. It'll and my wife and I will text an 1111 at the exact same time. But we're one little story. There was a night. And I was really, I had been fighting through something. And I'd really been struggling. And it was really hard. But then I remember feeling like this presence of this higher spirit, like God, like I'm feeling, and it's just like I can feel it, right? And I'm in the kitchen and I'm kind of looking down and I look up and on the coffee maker it said 1111. I put my head down. I'm like, okay, okay, I know. And then I kind of pull myself together and I look over at the rice maker. It said 2222 on the rice maker. Like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. But for me, there were times where I just felt like it's just too hard right now. It's too hard. Then all of a sudden, 111, 11, it's like, okay, I got this. I got this. So that has been a big part of me, like getting like, okay, I'm not here alone. I just have to know that some of these things that are happening and some of them are not easy. Some of them are, I'm being redirected, but I also want to have an awareness of what's going on around me, what I'm supposed to be doing, who I'm supposed to be communicating with, who I'm supposed to be. It's like you and I, like seeing you at Soul Shifters, right? And just being like, what's going on over here? And we start talking. Here we are, and this is going to branch out, and hopefully this is going to benefit someone, and it's benefiting me already. Hopefully it's benefiting you.
Most
But
definitely.
all these things just kind of come together the way that they're supposed to.
Yeah, definitely. And we are huge fans of numerology on this channel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And my team, like one of my other colleagues in our team actually like studies it pretty deeply. So
Really?
it's so exciting that you bring that up. Yeah, definitely.
My
And
wife sent my wife sent sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you because I forget things. But my wife sent me one. She was traveling. She was in New Mexico or something. And she looked on the odometer. The odometer was at 111,111 miles point one.
so crazy. And when you start looking for it, you start seeing it in the most like bizarre ways, which like that's pretty bizarre. That's absolutely bizarre. I love that. I love that, honestly. Well, I'm still not ready to let you go, Scott. We have quite a couple things to talk about. So, I do want to ask you in this realm of fashion photography, first of all, you made a name for yourself, I would say pretty fast. Considering like when you started putting out your portraits for people to see, you were there for like Denver Fashion Week, Boulder Fashion Week, all these big shows. So tell us a little bit about that. Like that was really fast paced. Your work speaks for itself. But yeah, how did that come up for you?
Yeah, it's a fun story. I've always like I love to photograph people. And the reason I like to do so is what we were talking about earlier, because I want to gift them with it and have them enjoy it. Um, but my family's like I photograph the kid. The kids do not want to see me coming at them with the camera anymore. So I'm figuring out, all right, where can I go? And then I was trying to figure out where I could shoot, and I saw something. It was Denver Models was putting on a fashion show called Unchained in 23, and I saw that and I'm like, that could be interesting. I wonder. And it was way beyond my reach. It's like fashion photography. I don't know anything. I mean, I love fashion. Like when I was a kid, like I've always loved fashion. I've always loved it. Um, but I never imagined I could like be a fashion photographer. So I went into this show and I'm like, yeah, and I'm intimidated and I'm like, and I just asked him, I said, I'm a photographer. Any chance I could come in and just shoot the show, I won't get in the way or anything, and I could just like shoot behind the scenes stuff. And they said, yeah, come on in. So I went in and I shot it, and I loved it. I just loved it, and I put stuff up on a site somewhere in a gallery, and one of the models reached out and she says, Scott, the models are freaking out over your photos. I'm like, what? She said, yeah, they're freaking out over your photos. I'm like, yes. So so then I'm distributing all these photos to everyone that was walking the show. Then I want to shoot another show, so I did another one, and it just like started going and going and going. But my goal when I first started, I thought the ultimate goal would be to shoot at Denver Fashion Week. Like that's the big show. Um, and then there was a Denver Fashion Week Spring Challenge. So I reached out last year to Denver Fashion Week and said, could I come shoot your challenge? And it was Lauren and Lauren Lippert. And Lauren said, yeah, come on over. So as I would go up, but by then I had stuff on my wall already. So I'm reaching out to her through Instagram, and she's seeing my other stuff that I've been shooting. So it's like when I reach out, at least I had some content at that point. They could see some of my work before responding to me. So they let me, and now I've become a regular at Denver Fashion Week. I shot there last fall. I'm shooting this spring. But it's fun, and of course we met at Soul Shifters the other night too. But I like the community a lot. It's interesting, even after Soul Shifters, and you saw how many models there were, right? I heard there were 80 models.
I
So
believe it.
I get back, I upload. I don't know if you look, but I sent you my
I
gallery.
did.
Did you
I
look at it?
did. I had to. I had to. I was like, oh my
Good.
God. I was looking for it like before you sent it to me. I was like hoping it would come on the website, but I'm like, nah, it's too early. It's too early. And then when you sent it to me, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to see this.
Yeah, it's like it's taken me a long time to figure out how to do that because all these people, and there I think there were about 10 photographers there. So there were other photographers with images too, but and a lot of the models I've shot with and shooting Denver Fashion Week and stuff. And so they start reaching out to me like, hey, I know you're busy, but did you have? So this time I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get them out there right away. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time editing. I just got like touch them, straighten them, light and darken a little bit, get them out there. So I have the first round for everybody is out there. So people are starting to share them on Instagram, and it's always fun to see my work getting pushed out there. But it's most fun to see how excited people get when they see those photos of themselves. It's really that's a
Yeah.
cool. I love being able having the ability to do that is something brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah, you do a pretty incredible job at it. But
Thank
you
you.
know what that reminded me of, Scott? So when I was young, I used to think, I mean, cameras were still a little behind the game at that point, but I would look at the mirror and then I'll be like, why don't my photos look like how I look in the mirror? I'm like, what's wrong with it? And I feel like when I saw your photos, like that was something that I saw that was captured.
Well, that's a good point because we do look different. I mean, we can, depending on lenses and angles, like we can look different. The other thing, and my wife is a person of color, so and she's often said, well, I'm not this dark. I'm not this. I don't. It's like no, it depends on who took the photograph. It's like, okay, when you see photos of yourself, and I'm sure you see it, sometimes you look really dark, sometimes you're lighter, and it depends on what somebody has their exposure set to or what other reflections. If there's another light in the room that's a certain color that's hitting you and changing your color, there are a lot of different things. So photographers have to understand like um, light. Like for me, it's like everything is light. The reflecting light, it's what makes somebody look really really makes people shine. I don't know
Yeah.
different colors, all these different things, but I
Yeah.
geek out on it.
It makes people shine. beautiful. And I feel like in fashion, at a fashion show especially, honestly, people don't realize how fast things move. And I didn't even realize until this other weekend. And I was trying to just get some shots, and before I could even see them coming out, they've already turned around and are on their way back. So it's just so
Yeah.
fast paced. There's so many colors, there's so many designers. But yeah, that must be like really thrilling, and it's just I feel like it's a different type of photography.
Well, you know what else is really important, worth mentioning, is that fashion has changed. Fashion is more diverse than it used to be.
Mhm.
Models are more diverse than they used to be. So it's like if you want to model, you can model. Anybody can model. I'm not saying you specifically, Naomi. I'm saying anybody can model. Like if you
Yeah.
want to get out on that runway, it's like I want to do it. I want to get out, and I've not done it, but I want to walk in that runway. Like I love the idea of you get to determine who your character is going to be on the runway based on what that designer's collection is. If it's streetwear, it's going to be a lot different than if it's bridal wear. Um, but you get to perform and you get to be part of this community. So um, Denver Fashion Week has auditions twice a year. Anybody can come out and audition. So if anyone's wanted to do that, come join us. It's a fun community.
Probably for like the first time in history, people can do that, and like anyone can be a model if they want
Yeah.
to, and it's just a special time to be alive, and that's awesome. But just speaking of diversity and fashion, let's jump right into your love for ballroom photography. And yeah, just tell us a little bit about, let's talk about it a little bit about like ballroom culture for folks who may not know. It's a deep rooted culture within the queer community, the Black and queer community. So tell us a little bit about that from your lens.
I know that I'm put where in places that I'm supposed to be placed. And I ended up, and this was the second. So first I shot um, uh, the fashion show by Denver Models. Then I'm looking for another fashion show to shoot, and I see something called The Night We Met, and it says ballroom. I'm like, ballroom? What is that? And I'm thinking like the old traditional ballroom, which was not appealing to me. But I looked at it, I'm like, now this looks interesting. So I mean, it was like I believe it stated it right there, and this was in the ballroom has changed a lot in 2 years in Denver. But I mean, it was POC LGBTQ plus there's the ballroom community at that time, and this event that I'm going to, and I'm like, I was intrigued. Whatever reason, I just reached out and said, "Can I come? I'm a photographer. Can I come shoot your event?" And they said yes, and I showed up, and I was very much out of place, as you can imagine, right? Here I am, this white male in his late 50s, um, but I knew that I was supposed to be there, and I wasn't quite sure why. And that night, one, it's well, it's beautiful, ugh, sorry, I get emotional
Yeah.
just because I
Good.
I see what the community goes through. It's sad. So I'm there in one of the, um, and I'm blown away by the beauty, by the community, by everything that I was welcome there, right? It's some place where maybe I shouldn't be welcome, where I would understand if I was not welcome. It's the same way I feel when I go to Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. It's like I get it. Like um, colonizers put you here, and I kind of look like one of them, you know. Um, anyway, so I'm at ballroom, the first one that I go to, and there, and I'm kind of overwhelmed because it can get really loud. There's a lot of movement. It's beautiful. Everybody has a lot of folks make their own costumes. There are performances, and I get I'm shooting it, and I'm looking at it, and I see someone wearing a jean jacket, and on their jean jacket, and the person was probably 16. There was a patch that said faggot. There's another patch that said God is a dyke. Oh, right on, right on. So I kind of felt like there's that higher power that's saying, showing me something like something. There's some things that are messed up, and I don't know what that is. I guess a lot of things are messed up, but um, I realized that there was a perfect place for me to be able to capture people and show them how beautiful they are, right? As they are, like especially in that community, the transgender community, where folks are dealing with so much at home in different scenarios. One of the folks said to me, she said, um, and she liked the images that I captured of her that night, and it was that first night. And she said, "Oh my God," she said, "I've never had pictures of me." I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Not like," she said, "I wasn't like, my family didn't want me in their family photos."
Mm.
I said, really? So let's go do a shoot. Let's go do a shoot. So I feel like I'm there, be that in the fashion community as a whole, be that in the ballroom community. I feel like I'm there to show people that they should be happy with who they are, right? And I think a lot of that boils down to how we look. Nobody looks at us and judges us for who we are based on what we're thinking when they see us, or what we know, or what we believe. We're all judged based on how we look.
Mm.
And we it's like the reality is none of us were created the same. That's intentional. None of us. So why are we looking at other people saying, well, why are you like this? Why are you what's none of it. It does not matter. It's like it's so cool that we are all so different. It's like let's just learn about that. Let's learn about one another and embrace that. I'm just tired of people expecting people to believe the same things that they believe or look the way that they look. And I'm just out mixing things up in the community, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It's really powerful, and especially with just how much adversity people in the LGBTQ community face, and more specifically nowadays, the struggles that trans people face. It's just so exciting to meet people like you who really wants to empower people in that community and just be there for them, and also utilize your art to empower them. I think that's
Yeah.
really special. It's not just the basics. That's something real, and that's something of value, and that has deep meaning. So I think that's just really, really, really beautiful. And yeah, that's also I feel like a way for other folks to learn more about it, and like get more into learn more about this creative space, and just learn more about the culture. And it's just a beautiful way of bringing community together. So I'm glad we spoke a little bit about that. But yeah, and to wrap up, I want us to just touch base on what it's been like for you to manage running a nonprofit on one side, doing your photography pretty intensively, might I add, and then also like working full time, and then being a dad, and being a family. So like, how do you manage all these things? Yeah, like what keeps you grounded?
I don't know as though I am. I don't know as I am. It's like I'm all over the place. My Fortunately, my partner, my wife Joy, is she's done a great job with like keeping our nonprofit Friends of the Lakota Nation up. She's an educator at Watershed School in Boulder, and she's taking kids over there on a bunch of different projects. So I will take no credit for keeping that afloat because that has been her for the past several years. Um, but a lot of it is just work and fortunately the kids are old enough now that they don't require that much work. I still have my 15-year-old LJ who's in the she's getting into modeling and fashion, so we get to share the fashion world a little bit. So that's exciting. And Joy, my spouse, is she's getting into some design work, and she's a writer. So we're talking about designing a clothing line, and she's going to use some of her writing abilities and to put some messaging on some of the clothing as well.
Wow, multi-talented family. That's very exciting.
But yeah, it's I don't know how it's not together at all, and it's not grounded. It's a mess, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's okay too, as long as you keep doing what you love. But yeah,
Yeah.
before we wrap up, what piece of advice or message would you like to pass on to our audience who have listened to this conversation today, and I'm sure had at least a few things that they resonated with?
There's something earlier, when we were talking about work and careers and figuring out where to go, how to not do something that you absolutely hate. And when I think about it, when I think about what younger folks are faced with today, especially at a point where it's like, am I going to college? Am I not going to college? Am I taking a year off? Am I taking 2 years off? What am I going to do? Well, right now I'm going to get a job somewhere. Whoever will hire me, I'm going to work there. Then I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do next. I think one piece of advice when you're looking for that, for either that one job to get you by, so you can model or shoot your camera at the end of the day, whatever it may be, is find when you're looking for somewhere to work, pay attention to what the environment is like. Like if you're thinking, you know what, I heard McDonald's pays $18 an hour. I have no idea what McDonald's pays, but I heard they pay $18 an hour. I'm going to work there. It's like, well, if you have five of them around your house, spend a little bit of time in each one and just look and watch, talk to some of the employees. It's like the most important thing is whoever it is that you're going to be reporting to, that your boss is, make sure that they can treat you right. Make sure that it's someone that will respect you, because I think in far too many times we end up with people in a position of power that take advantage of that and end up. I, I've seen it a bunch myself where it's like, okay, so I've done what I do for a long time. Why are you constantly questioning me if I did this, and why did I do this, and why did I do that? It's like it's important when you're going to work somewhere where you can be respected, where you can be respected. And if you're not, if you can't find somewhere you can be respected, at least find somewhere where somebody's not going to be messing with you at all. Right? It's like,
Mhm.
because I think if I'm going to work in Chipotle, right? I'm going to work. I'm going to work for Chipotle. I'm going to work at one of them. I'm going to go in and I'm going to look. I want to see how happy are the people that are working behind the counter? How busy is it? I might even ask a couple of them, do you like working here? Because I think that's really, really important to be somewhere where those that you're reporting to or you're working for are people that are going to respect you and treat you right. Otherwise,
Amazing.
it's a really bad way to spend the day.
Yeah, that's really really incredible piece of advice, Scott. And I second that right there with you because you are spending 8 hours to 9 hours of your waking days at your work, and then you're spending another 2 hours getting to and from there.
Yeah.
Five times a week, or even if you work remote, you're still on the clock. So that's just a beautiful piece of advice because you spend so much time in that environment, so it might as well be something that is like not harmful to you. And
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for this really incredible conversation tonight. And I feel like we're going to have a part two, and I feel like we're going to cross paths again, just Denver being so small and us
Yeah.
having some similar interests. So I look forward to sitting down with you in a few months and kind of just catching up and hopefully have another conversation on this channel for our audience. But thank you again. And yeah, I'm sure our audience are enjoying this. So thank you all for watching. And if you would like to see some of Scott's work, the links will be down in the description below. So scroll down and feel free to click on it and check out Scott Norby Photography. Thank you, Scott, for being here today. Um, have a good one.
Thanks for having me.